Hello and welcome to my presentation on the Blue Mustang at the Denver International Airport. This is the topic of my public art presentation. Let's begin. Imagine, if you will, that you've just spent several hours maneuvering the hurdles that come with air travel. The hassles through security, the inane boarding process, the cramped seats, the confusing paths between airport terminals. All of these sensations are hallmarks of the airport experience and contribute to the image of airports as liminal spaces in the lives of travelers caught between two nations, two states, two ways of living. You are on a bus, half asleep, traveling through the night towards the promise of home when you see this on the horizon. The image of a rearing, muscular, blue 30-foot-high horse with glowing red eyes assaults with a vision that is close to demonic. It stands proudly on a plateau that sits at a nexus of roads and landing zones, and thus no traveler to the Denver International Airport has been able to escape unscathed without encountering what has been nicknamed Blucifer. The question comes to mind, then, why did the DIA commission this sculpture? Why put it here? Who made it? Does it really provide evidence for the conspiracy that Illuminati lizard people are controlling the world governments from secret bunkers built underneath the airport? Well, let's find out. To begin, let's talk about what the sculpture actually is. It is titled Blue Mustang, and it is a fiberglass sculpture standing 32 feet high and weighing 9,000 pounds, presently located on the Pena Boulevard of Denver International Airport. The DIA originally commissioned artist Luis Jimenez in 1993, 2 years before the airport finished completion, to produce the piece based off of an earlier 8-foot-high horse Jimenez constructed for installation in the University of Oklahoma. The statue would be completed behind schedule and after the DIA sunk $650,000 after a planned $300,000 into the sculpture. The horse itself is airbrushed bright blue and purple and sculpted with extreme musculature and bulging veins, including the near obscene display of the equine's genitalia. The most striking feature is, of course, the red eyes, powered by two large LEDs. What is the meaning behind such a disturbing image? We need only to look at the background of the artist. Luis Jimenez grew up in El Paso, Texas, where he worked with his father in a neon sign shop. All of Jimenez's sculptures are brash and vibrantly colorful, explained as clear nods to the bright colors that typify the traditional Mexican artwork and murals that Jimenez grew up around. The glowing eyes, thought to allude to the image of the horse as the horse of the apocalypse or possession by a demon, are a more benign nod to the neon lights in Jimenez's father's workshop. The image of a rearing stallion was chosen as a heavily American representation of freedom, strength in the American Southwest. The sculpture also has roots in the mythic story told by the people of the San Luis Valley in southern Colorado, telling of a large Mustang that ruled over all the herds, described to be enormous, blue, and with glowing red eyes. The Mustang would lead others to places with the freshest water and the sweetest grass, all the while running faster than the wind, to the point where it seemed to fly. Quite an appropriate symbol, then, to put in a place where the planes regularly take off and land. But one cannot talk about Blucifer without mentioning its supposed curse. While being worked on by Luis Jimenez, the sculpture broke free of its scaffolding in 2006 and fell upon his leg, severing his artery and killing him. Despite the tragedy, his friends and family continued to work on the sculpture in his memory and presented it to the airport after it was finished. But the death of its creator is not the only reason for the horse's controversy. The Denver International Airport with which it is associated has long been involved in conspiracy theories and mysteries. Denver International Airport was constructed when the city already had a functional airport nearby. The project went over $2 billion over budget, and rumors spread of secret tunnel systems and entire 5-story buildings being constructed in the earth below. The art that decorates the airport all has a similar motif to the horse as well. Many murals depict disturbing and symbolic imagery that tend to confuse and shock travelers rather than pacify. Even the very layout of the airport has been compared to a swastika. All these factors have pointed conspiracy theorists towards stories of Freemasonry, lizard people, Illuminati, and the DIA containing hidden messages that allude either to the date of the apocalypse or similar unwelcome events. But the DIA seems to have the motto that all press is good press, and has actually leaned into the conspiratorial side of its history, creating conspiracy-themed events during the month of October, putting up a talking gargoyle sculpture that simultaneously welcomed visitors while calling the airport Illuminati headquarters, or decorating construction signs with messages like under the construction or underground tunnels. The horse itself appeared on banners reading, "Are we creating the world's greatest airport, or preparing for the end of the world?" It's reported that the conspiracy theories produce up to $1.5 million in free publicity for the airport. But conspiracy theories are not the only reactions the airport and the Blue Mustang have had. When Lucifer was first erected, there was a brief outcry from the nearby public that the horse was too grotesque and disturbing, that it did more harm than good when welcoming world-weary travelers to Denver. But Denver has a rather progressive artistic administrative rule, stating, with some abbreviation, that no public art piece so commissioned could be taken down until 5 years have elapsed. Though Facebook groups and public campaigns were started to bring the sculpture down, in 2013 when the 5 years had passed, no petitions were signed to end the horse's reign, and instead, the tables had turned dramatically. The public had accepted the horse, and had turned it into somewhat even a local mascot, and any action taken to remove it would have been met by massive outrage. The public art of Denver International Airport, especially the Blue Mustang, stands in contrast to the public art that one usually sees in other airports or public spaces. In these spaces, a local authority, such as a governance or conglomerate, attempts to sway the general attitude of the public through the use of public art. Virag Munar, butchered the name, writes, "A key premise of this urban governance paradigm is that tight aesthetic control over urban space fosters social order. When an artist is commissioned to create a public art piece, there are a number of unspoken hoops they are assumed to have to jump through. The art is asked, in sum, to be popular with the general public, inoffensive to minorities and alternative points of view, profit-inducing if connected with private development, administration-enhancing if connected with a civic one, and somehow aesthetically meritorious. And it isn't allowed to disturb very much." In this way does the Blue Mustang stand in contrast to this idea. While not outright intended to be offensive, it is far from being the expected aesthetic. The Blue Mustang caused a brief uproar with its installation, almost as if it had done violence on the general public. The general tone of the art within the DIA is definitely one of disturbance and an assault on the senses of the unexpecting traveler. W.J.T. Mitchell writes, "Violence may be in some sense encoded in the concept and practice of public art, in that is a near impossibility to create an art piece that will appeal to absolutely everyone, due to the essential differences in preference of the average individual of varying backgrounds, and that any public art piece is going to stand out contrary to the sensibilities of at least one person who sees it. To sidestep this problem of trying to pander to everyone, the DIA seems to have opted for the method of purposefully making the art skirt the line of sensibility for everyone, and in doing so unite everyone in the shared feeling of disturbance. In this, the Blue Mustang and others have no doubt succeeded. While most inoffensive public art pieces fade into the background of everyday life, the Blue Mustang continually shocks the unwary population that makes its way through the Denver airport, continually growing in infamy. It is not easy to get the image of the Blue Mustang out of your mind once you've seen it. I certainly haven't. I flew frequently when I was growing up in Colorado, and I remember that Blue Mustang always being there, in the sun or the rain through the bus window, its piercing red eyes becoming a striking memory. If an art piece wants to endure the tests of time, then it must transcend modern sensibilities and exist outside of what we may or may not prefer at our public spaces. Maybe then we can grow to accept other things that make us uncomfortable, just like people did for the Blue Mustang.